You woke up and they were there, alive, present, real in a way that felt nothing like a dream. And then you woke up again and remembered. That moment of remembering, the gap between them being there and them being gone, might be the sharpest pain the human brain is capable of producing. Scientists are only now beginning to understand why it keeps happening. Because it does keep happening. Not just once, not just in the weeks right after the loss. People dream about those they have lost months later, years later, sometimes decades later. A grandmother dead for 20 years appearing in a kitchen that no longer exists. A friend gone since childhood standing in a school hallway, saying something that felt important and is already fading. A parent, a partner, someone whose absence has been a fixed fact of your life for so long that waking life has almost adjusted to it. And then one night they are simply there again. Grief researchers have a name for this specific kind of dream. They call it a visitation dream. And what makes it different from ordinary dreaming about the dead isn't just the emotional weight, though that is considerable. It's the consistency of how people describe them. Across cultures, across continents, across people who have never compared notes, the reports line up with unusual precision. The person appears calm. There is no confusion about whether they are dead. The dreamer somehow knows inside the dream that this is a temporary encounter. The conversation, if there is one, feels deliberate. And the feeling on waking, even through the grief of remembering again, is often something close to peace. That last part is what caught researchers' attention. If these were just the brain randomly replaying stored memories of someone loved, you would expect the emotional texture to vary. Happy memories, painful ones, mundane ones, all mixed together the way ordinary dreams mix. But visitation dreams are different in character almost every time, which suggests they are not random. Which suggests the brain is doing something specific. So what is it doing? Start with what happens to memory when someone dies. Your brain has spent years, sometimes decades, building a model of that person. Not just their face, though that is part of it, a full internal simulation. Their voice, the way they moved, the specific rhythm of their speech, what they found funny, how they responded when they were tired or worried or proud. Neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett at Northeastern University has spent years studying how the brain builds predictive models of the people close to us. Here is what that actually means in practice. Every time you interacted with someone you loved, your brain was running a quiet background process, comparing what they actually said and did against what it predicted they would say and do. Each time it was right, the model sharpened. Each time it was wrong, it adjusted. Over years and decades of this, your brain built something extraordinarily precise, not a photograph. A simulation accurate enough to generate their probable response to something that hasn't happened yet. That model doesn't disappear when someone dies. It can't. It's too deeply embedded in the brain's architecture. Every conversation you had with them, every glance across a room, every moment of conflict and reconciliation, an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, all of it went into building that simulation. And when the person is gone, the simulation remains. Intact, detailed, and with no new input to update it. This is why grief is disorienting in a way that's almost neurological. Your brain keeps generating predictions about a person who is no longer there to confirm or correct them. You reach for your phone to tell them something, and the motion is halfway complete before you remember. You hear a song they loved, and the simulation activates, expecting them to respond to it, and finds nothing. The brain, Barrett's research suggests, experiences this as a kind of prediction error it cannot resolve. The model keeps running. Reality keeps failing to match it. And at night, when the constraints of waking life are lifted, the model runs freely. This is where the visitation dream begins. During REM sleep, the brain's prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reality checking, goes largely offline. The simulation of the person you lost, which has been running in the background of your waking hours, suddenly has room to operate without being suppressed by the knowledge that it has nowhere to go. Your brain generates them. Not as a memory, not as a replay, but as a full presence. The voice is right, the face is right. The feeling of being with them is right, because the simulation was built from years of data, and the simulation is extraordinarily good. But there is more happening than just an unsuppressed model running loose. In 1992, Harvard psychologist Deirdre Barrett published a study examining dreams of the deceased, one of the first systematic analyses of its kind. What she found was that visitation dreams peak not in the immediate weeks after a loss, when grief is most acute, but in the months that follow, as the reality of the absence begins to settle. This timing matches almost exactly what sleep researcher Matthew Walker at the University of California, Berkeley, found about REM, sleep, and emotional processing, which is that the sleeping brain uses REM to strip the emotional charge from difficult memories, to open painful files in a low-stress neurochemical environment and refile them with the sharp edges worn down. The visitation dream, Barrett argued, is the brain's most sophisticated version of this process. It doesn't just replay a memory of the person, it generates a full encounter. And in that encounter, the brain can do something it cannot do in waking life. It can complete things: the conversation that never happened, the goodbye that wasn't possible, the question that was never answered, the thing that needed to be said and wasn't. Your brain generates the person with enough fidelity to simulate how they might have responded. And in doing so, it gives the grief somewhere to go. Think about what that actually means. Grief's most persistent quality for most people is not sadness exactly. It is incompleteness, the sense of a sentence that stopped mid-word. The brain, which built its model of this person through thousands of completed interactions, suddenly has one that never closes. The visitation dream is, in part, the brain's attempt to close it, not by pretending the person is alive, but by using everything it knows of them to simulate what completion might have felt like. Not resolution exactly, but movement. The difference between a wound that is healing and one that isn't is not the absence of pain. It's whether something is changing. Visitation dreams are how the brain makes something change. This explains something that researchers initially found puzzling about these dreams. The person who appears is almost never distressed. They almost never reflect the circumstances of their death. Someone who died in pain appears at ease. Someone who died suddenly appears unhurried. Someone with whom you had unresolved conflict appears without it. For years, this was interpreted as wishful thinking, the brain generating comfort it needed. But Barrett's analysis suggests something more functional. The brain is not showing you how they died. It is showing you what the simulation of them was built from: years of living rather than a single moment of dying. And it is using that simulation to finish something grief left open. There is one more layer to this that the research has only recently mapped. In 2016, a team of Canadian researchers led by Jane Gackenbach published a cross-cultural analysis of dreams among 76 bereaved adults across different backgrounds and belief systems. What they found was striking. Roughly 68% of participants described their dreams of the deceased as visitations. Roughly 71% said those dreams left them feeling more connected to the person they had lost. But what the researchers noted across cultural lines was that the content of the dreams remained consistent regardless of what participants believed about death, about what comes after it, about whether the dead can communicate. Cultural framework shaped interpretation. It did not shape what the brain generated. The neuroscience and the spiritual experience were describing, from different angles, the same thing, which raises a question the research cannot answer and does not try to. Whether what your brain is doing during a visitation dream is purely the operation of a sophisticated predictive model, or whether it is something that connects to something else, is not a question neuroscience has the tools to settle. What neuroscience can say is that the brain's capacity to generate the dead with this degree of fidelity, to use them for emotional processing, to produce an encounter specific and real enough to carry a bereaved person forward through grief, is not an accident. It is not noise. It is one of the most elaborate and useful things the human brain does. And it does it quietly, without asking permission, for as long as it needs to. You woke up and they were there, and then you remembered. And the morning after a dream like that is its own particular kind of loss. But here is what the research is trying to tell you, even if it can only say it in the language of neurochemistry and REM cycles and predictive models. The brain that built them from everything you shared is still running, still using what it knows of them to process what their absence means. Still, in its way, keeping them. Not forever, not in the way you want, but in the only way a brain can. Every dream like that is your brain doing the most human thing it knows how to do, taking someone it loved and finding a way to hold them a little longer, even if only until morning.